I think the teams that you got to look at that are going to be interesting in one way or another, it's in the East. The three teams in the East, Boston, Toronto, and Tampa, I think have opportunities to make a decision to change their franchises if they choose to.
Fly ball onto the track, at the wall, it's gone! Home run!
Turns on a ball, deep right field, and gone!
What a game, what a moment.
All right, I am pumped to be joined by the Hall of Famer John Smoltz, as I am every single Saturday. John, how are we doing this week?
We're doing good. We missed the U.S. Open qualifying by one shot. Yes, yeah. I'm an alternate, but other than that, trending in the right direction.
Oh man, I mean that has to be positive though. Trending in the right direction. I know one stroke is tough, but man, I mean to miss it by one stroke is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm getting used to it, but I'm going to start changing that narrative here soon.
John, we had earlier this week in studio had David Justice in. Such a great conversation, a really good, seemingly a really good guy. A lot of fun having him on. But I did tell him that you're on the show every single week and asked if he had any stories about you. And I got to say, what he wanted to talk about was your basketball skills, compared playing pickup with you to playing with Steph Curry, and then also added that he was much better than you on the basketball court. So what's your response to that?
Well, truly a great athlete, David Justice. We were playing in AAA, kind of in a parking lot with a basketball hoop.
This is what he said.
And I'm telling you right now, this dude was playing all out in a sports game. And I'm like, I'm trying my best to emulate what he's doing, but he's hanging in the air longer. He docked me a letter for not hanging in the air long enough to create the shot. But we had a blast. We kind of grew up, AAA to the big leagues. And, David's one of the best hitters I ever played with, along with Chipper Jones. But we had a lot of time playing video game, baseball, shooting hoops and the likes. It was good times.
When I asked him his favorite story about you, it was that AAA day playing basketball and just how hard you guys were going at it. Do you have a favorite David Justice story of your own?
I do. Back in the day, he had a souped up Honda Civic with the 12 rear view mirrors, in the front, like 12 of them across. I got in his car, and in his license plate said "Sweet Swing," and his floor mat said "Just Ice." and I'm telling you, he was so proud of that car. And I'm like, man, if I wasn't in your car, I'd have no idea whose car this was. He was definitely living a life. Rookie of the year. And we had a trip from spring training to Richmond, Virginia, where we all drove. We had CBs. That back in the day, no cell phones, so we had CBs, and we were doing a caravan. And man, I kept looking at that Honda Civic and seeing "Sweet Swing" on it, and that's one of my favorite stories.
I'll never forget my brother when he was in high school going into college. His license plate was "Bringing It," just like with Velo, just bringing it. And he got there and obviously would get made fun of. And I think that came to an end fairly quickly after that. But the guys will get on you for stuff like that for sure.
Yeah, there's no doubt it came to an end shortly after that for David too. Kangaroo court.
Exactly. John, we were talking the other day on the show about just trade deadline. I know it's far away, but what teams need to be more aggressive and which teams don't. And it really made me start thinking about, there are teams right now that I feel like need to make moves, that are going to need to make moves. And my thought goes to, why do we always wait? I mean, look at what the Padres did, going to get Luis Ariz and how valuable that has been for them. All he's done is hit 400 since he got there. They knew they needed a bat like that, and they went and got it. So what are your thoughts on why we see teams wait until beginning of August to go make moves that we know they're going to need to make, like the Royals, now the Orioles missing some arms and maybe could even use an outfielder. The Mariners need a bat. Why do we see teams wait until the last possible second?
I think the price gets cheaper. Right now, the price is as high as it's going to be because you have more control and more time with them. So they're going to demand a little bit more. And we have a unique situation right now that I think will work itself out. But in the National League, I think there's 10 teams within 4 games of a wild card spot. And that's got to change because every team that's in that position thinks they have a chance. So they're not going to trade a piece away. I think the teams that you got to look at that are going to be interesting in one way or another, it's in the East. The 3 teams in the East, Boston, Toronto, and Tampa, I think have opportunities to make a decision to change their franchises if they choose to. I'm saying it's too early right now, but you also have Houston, who's 7 games back in the wild card. They're actually closer, I believe, in the division. But that's the crazy thing. Top-heavy teams and a lot of below 500 teams that all feel like if the right things shake their way, they're still in it. So this is the reason why you wait. If you go and make an early move, you're making a blockbuster move that's going to dramatically change. You can't make a move right now if you don't think your percentage of making the playoffs is higher than 80%. Yeah. And that's the risk. And I think that's why teams wait till the deadline.
I think the most interesting team as we get closer and closer has to be the Toronto Blue Jays. If they're going to stay under 500 with big time stars and contract years and Vladdy Jr. and Bo Bichette, I mean, they have come out publicly and said, why would they do that? They're not going to trade them. But if they're still under 500 at the trade deadline, I don't see a world in which they don't at least entertain it and maybe take the franchise and the organization in a bit of a different direction.
There's no doubt about that. That's why you got to keep your eyes on those teams if they decide to zag, because they've never been in that position for a while. They've been building towards the playoffs. They've come close. They've made one. The Dodgers are going to be they're going to have their binoculars out for every team that has either got a shortstop or an outfielder, because that's what they need to add. And I think it's going to be interesting to see. I know Betts is doing an incredible job at shortstop, but if they can land a pretty darn good shortstop and take the pressure off of Betts, put him back in the outfield or put him at second base, I think they might do both. I think the Dodgers could be in the market for a shortstop and an outfielder. So Bo Bichette is going to come up a little bit. Team flounders. You know, the team that's interesting and the team that's been in this position a lot that rarely does anything at the trade deadline is the Milwaukee Brewers. And Milwaukee is going to be at that same point where their fan base is going to be at the same point looking for their club to make a move to bolster a division that's easily won if they continue at this pace, because it's up for grabs in general because there's nobody really that stands out ahead. But right now, Milwaukee's doing that. So there's a lot of teams in the fray that are waiting for some teams to bottom out.
I'll never forget a couple of years ago when the fan base was all in on the Brewers. They were in first place. They were playing great. The fan base wanted them to go get some offense at the trade deadline. And all they did was traded away Josh Hader. Everybody's like, what are we doing here?
Exactly right. And it's really been the story of their franchise. They don't do too many deals. They find a way to be competitive. They find a way to feel like they're going to be making a run. But until they do something different, I got to just tell you, that's what we've seen over the last 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
You and I have talked recently about the best 1-2 punch in baseball. Is it Soto and Judge? Is it Betts and Ohtani? And honestly, since we've had that discussion, Soto and Judge have both been on another planet. I mean, it has been remarkable how good they've been. Where would you place those two in an all-time combo sort of conversation? I mean, it's pretty historic what we're seeing right now.
It really is, and it's a tough one to answer because in the context of this generational baseball, I got to put them obviously at the top because I know it's only a half a season, but my goodness, you're talking about a run right now that doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Yeah. And where velocity is at an all-time high. And the only guy that may strike out a little bit more than the other is Judge. And right now he's hitting a home run every other at bat, it seems like. So I'm telling you, there's a lot of this. You could put a ton of players together in this list, but it would have to be in the generation that you're talking about because this time frame is so far different. And I'll tell you, I mean, I find it hard pressed to get anybody that would top them right now. And that's just ultimate respect on what Soto's doing and what Aaron Judge is capable of doing.
What about, and if we're talking your generation of playing and when you were pitching, what would you say was the best 1-2 punch that you had to face or ever got to face on the mound?
Yeah, you know, and when I was posed this question, I'm really searching for that. I don't know that there's two guys similar to that. I mean,
Wow.
Barry Bonds and Jeff Kent will come up to mind because Jeff Kent obviously benefited from Barry Bonds because of the fatigue factor. I mean, anybody you put with Barry Bonds is special. I look at the Colorado days, man, when Holiday and Big Cat and Vinny Castilla, I mean, they were lethal, and Larry Walker. And so I don't know that it's comparative to what we're seeing right now, just because of not only the on-base percentage, but the power. And that's a question we're going to pick that question up next week, because you made me think about a 1-2 punch that goes back in some time that I don't want to disrespect and miss.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like normally if you're talking 1-2 punch, there's typically one that seems better than the other, and then they benefit off of each other, and they could both be Hall of Famers. But typically, you can point to, man, that guy is unbelievable. And you know, I think of these two and how good they are and how historic it is what they're doing. And again, I know it's the beginning of June and it's early in the season, but I feel like it's tough not to go back to old Yankees and think like, and don't take this out of context, but like Ruth and Gehrig together in the lineup, like how incredible that was. This almost feels like the modern day version of that, at least through a third of the season. It's been remarkable.
No, it's fair, because again, we're seeing velocity in pitches that are not normal, right? I mean, it's harder to hit today, no doubt.
Yeah.
And so what they're doing and how they're doing it, and when the trade was made, I just felt like the Yankees were going to be a +20 win team just because of Juan Soto. I know that's a lot of wins to put on a team, especially when you lose your ace, but I wouldn't think that that's going to be far-fetched this year.
They're sitting pretty with their ace out all year, and he is getting closer and closer and closer to being back. So the Yankees are sitting pretty right now. John, always a pleasure, my friend. I really appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
See you next week.
All right, just wanted to thank John Smoltz again for joining me, as he does every single week here on Flippin Bats. Always a lot of fun. Really cool to be able to talk to him today about the conversation earlier in the week with David Justice in studio. If you haven't listened to that, Justice was in studio on the set of Flippin Bats. It was a really fun conversation. Talked all about Smoltz and Braves of the past and his entire career, going from the Braves to, at the time, Indians, to then the Yankees and the A's. Kind of just walked through his whole career, and it really was so fascinating to hear. So I had a lot of fun with that conversation as well. If you haven't, go back and listen. That was just a couple days ago on Wednesday, so make sure you check that out. Always appreciate John for joining me. Always a lot of fun. Hope you all appreciate it as well. Make sure you like, subscribe, wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify. Hit that follow, subscribe button. That really helps. You can watch everything as well on Spotify. You can watch on our YouTube channel at Flippin Bats Pod, and follow us on social media at Flippin Bats Pod. We put a lot of cool stuff out there. So I really appreciate it. Remember, everyone, find your bat and flip it. Peace.